Welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Staltari, and I am a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Today we're looking at Les Filles Mariées, the marriageable girls, and getting to know their stories a little bit better. Remember that the marriageable girls came between 1634 and 1662. So this was early on. So absolutely amazing stories they have to tell. I also want to show you ways that you can support the channel. Subscribe, like, and notify. All that helps. All those algorithms. And then of course we have our memberships, and the memberships that start at 99 cents and go all the way to 24. And then we have also on my the PayPal link on my website, and a super thanks if you really like an episode. So with that being said, let's get started and get to know our next episode of Les Filles Mariées. Today we're going to be looking at Les Filles Mariées, episode 134, Nicole Rolland. And she comes to us from a viewer request. I did not have her in my file, so let's get to know Nicole a little bit better. Nicole was born about 1632 in Paris, France. Her parents were Pierre Rolland and Francoise Deschaux. Now, Nicole's father had been the governor of the town of Luxembourg in Lorraine, France, so she came from a fairly privileged background. She would have been baptized at the Church of Saint-Sulpice, which is located in Paris at the heart of the Latin Quarter, which is part of the 6th arrondissement. This church was dedicated to Sulpicius the Pious. The present church was built starting in 1646 over a 13th century church. Now look at when she was born, 1632. So she would have been baptized in the previous church. That's just incredible to me. It's a beautiful, beautiful parish. Saint-Sulpice was founded by a parish priest, Jean-Jacques Ollier, who also established the Society of Saint-Sulpice, a clerical community that still has a presence in the church today. Anne of Austria laid that first stone. Now, the 6th arrondissement of Paris, remember that Paris is laid out in circles. It's called Luxembourg, after the Senate and the Luxembourg Gardens. And it's truly a historic and intellectual hub on that left bank of the Seine. It's home to some of Paris's most prestigious institutions, like the École des Beaux-Arts, the École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales, and the Institut de France. This area is famous for its literary and intellectual heritage, once the gathering place for writers and philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, Albert Camus, and François Sagan. It's also known for its cafe culture and high-end boutiques. The 6th is considered one of the most fashionable and expensive districts in Paris, with really a blend of bohemian charm and intellectual prestige. Truly, I think when you think of Paris, you kind of think of the 6th, you know? So it's very, very, she comes from this beautiful area in Paris. Nicole's father would pass away, and Nicole would come to New France sometime, we believe, in 1654. And remember, she was, probably encouraged to come because this would be a way for her to establish a new life. There was, of course, no remuneration, no kind of prizes that you would get. You would usually be, sponsored to go by a church or some sort of individual. And it's very possible that her father being, a high-ranking official, it may be that this was totally a very, very much recruited person to come to New France and add that extra bit of class, Fellow that she would select as her groom and who would select her, his name was Francois Blondeau. And he was born about 1629 in Saumur, France. And that is found in the Loire Valley, the Pays de la Loire, which is a historic town known for its 14th century chateaus. And you can just see in the picture, I mean, it really looks like what you think of when you think of the Pays de la Loire. And the prestigious cavalry school called the Cadre Noir, and the sparkling wines that are aged in their limestone caves. The town's charm lies in those half-timbered houses, lively market, and very strong cultural heritage, including its ties to the Huguenots during the Wars of Religion. A key landmark is Notre-Dame de Nettilly, Saumur's oldest church. Built between the 11th and 15th centuries, it's named after Saint Nantil, and features a blend of Roman and Gothic architecture. Together, Saumur and Notre-Dame de Nantilly showcase the rich history and beauty of the Loire Valley. Confirm when Francois first came to New France, but we know that he was there by 1651, very very early on. So let's have a look. He was probably about 21 years of age. There was a business contract that he signed, so perhaps he came with some money and established himself. We're not sure. There's no evidence that he signed a contract. So let's have a look at what happened when they met. Francois and Nicole were married on February 8, 1655 at Quebec City. The family would settle at Charlebourg, a historic neighborhood located just outside the center of Quebec City. It was founded in 1659, making it one of the oldest colonial settlements in all of New France. And what makes Charlebourg really, really stand out is the unique design. It's almost like the first planned community. Jean Talon, we've all heard of Jean Talon, had a plan. And what his plan was, he wanted the church to be dominant. So he created, or he had people create kind of a structure. And what it was is the très carré, which is the square in the middle, would be the church. And all of life would revolve around the church and the rectory and all of that, the presbytere and all of that. And so then they would have some modicum, I think, of control. So this is, Charlebourg was made like this, Bourg-Royal was made like that. But you can look at Petite Auvergne, it's not quite a square, it's more like a rectangle. So that's interesting as well. So it would continue to look exactly like that well into the 60s. And you can see the area view in 1960s that it really maintained that star-shaped kind of wheel spoke-like, and you can see in the middle there is the church. And the church is the Church of Saint-Charles de Borromée, that of course it didn't look like this back then. In 1655, it would have looked more like a really simple one-room chapel. And this is where they would start their family. But really, when you walk through Charlebourg, you will really be walking somewhere in time. It really is a magnificent slice of what Quebec was like. Now, in the 1666 census, we have Francois, we have Nicole, we have Joseph, Marie, and another Marie. Francois, in the 1667 census, we have Francois, Nicole, Joseph, Maurice. Maurice suddenly shows up. And so that's one of those vagaries of, how do they count things. Then we have Marie, and then Marie Charlotte. And then we have 4 beasts. There's no acreage yet accounted for. They would go on to have 10 children. Marguerite would pass away in infancy. Matrin would pass away sometime before the 1681 census. Barbe René would pass away in infancy. Joseph would marry Marie Ursule Roy, Marguerite Trudel, and Agnes Gilliard. The last one is the one with whom he would leave a descendancy. 4 children, all 4 would survive. We have Marie-Françoise, who passed away at 1 year of age. We have Maurice, who married Suzanne Charbonnier and would have 3 children, all of whom would survive. Marie-Catherine would marry Nicolas Sarrazin and would have 5 children, all of whom would survive. She then married Pierre-Jean and would have 2 children, both of whom did survive. Marie Charlotte would pass away in infancy. Jean would marry Marie Marguerite Haute and would have 4 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. And Thomas would marry Marianne Gagne and would have 3 children, all of whom would survive. In the 1681 census, we find Francois, Nicole, their children, Joseph, Maurice, Marie, Jean, Thomas. They have one gun, two pistolets. I'm not really sure. I guess maybe that's some sort of firearm, a shotgun rather than a gun. Five bêtes à cornes, which are five goats or horned animals. And they have 18 arpents, about 15 to 16 acres of land. Nicole would pass away at age 60 in 1694. She and Francois would have been married 39 years, and she would leave us, as of 1729, 109 descendants. Francois would pass away a little less than 8 years later. He did not remarry. There's a wonderful story on Francois and obviously on our wonderful Marguerite in our French Canadian ancestors. That is, I think it was the book number 21, and it is chapter 4, pages 49 to 59. If you can't find this book at your local library or on eBay, you can go on the Facebook site, our Free French Canadian Ancestors, sign up, and you will have access to all of their files, which includes the files on Francois Blondeau, so you can read it for yourself. So ends our story of Nicole. I mean, she left us far too early, but she still left us with a tremendous amount of descendants. And she was one of the pioneers at Charlebourg. So we are so grateful that her and Francois made a life and lived a life, even though they had tragedy and they had, children pass away and all of that. They still managed to make a life. And that sometimes is the best story of all. So thank you for coming to our shores, and we bless your memory, and we are so grateful that you braved an ocean to come help save New France. And thank you to my patrons, supporters, and subscribers. You are the wind beneath my wings. Thank you ever so much. And I'll see you on the next episode of Les Filles Mariées. Until then, au revoir.